In May, Virginia, the sun shone brightly. At West Point Military Academy, a solemn graduation ceremony was about to take place on the parade ground. The perfectly aligned ranks, the crisp gray uniforms, the young and resolute faces. The air was thick with pride, anticipation, and a touch of melancholy at parting. Among the spectators, one figure stood out. His name was Benjamin Carter. He wore a clean but noticeably worn khaki jacket over an ironed shirt with a slightly frayed collar. His graying hair was meticulously combed, and his posture was ramrod straight. Alone, he sat in the folding chair assigned to family members, a stark contrast to the cheerful, well-dressed groups of families around him. In his hand, he clutched a crumpled letter, an invitation from his son, Matthew Carter. Benjamin's eyes shone with an unspoken pride, but deep within them lay a barely perceptible unease, and the lingering pain of past wounds being touched. It had taken immense courage for him to be here. Matthew was his only son, his everything. To support Matthew's education, he worked several odd jobs, living a frugal life. He refused his son's offer to buy him a new suit, saying, "Son, your graduation day is your day of honor. Whatever I wear will make you happy." Before the ceremony began, the atmosphere was lively. Benjamin wanted to use the restroom, and following the signs, headed towards a nearby academic building. Unfamiliar with the route, he strayed slightly from the designated family area and approached the area where the graduates were gathered. Benjamin wanted to use the restroom, and following the signs, headed towards a nearby academic building. Unfamiliar with the route, he strayed slightly from the designated family area and approached the area where the graduates were gathered. "Sir, this is the graduation preparation area. Families and visitors are not allowed here." Chad sized Benjamin up and down, a hint of disdain flashing in his eyes. His tone, though polite, carried a condescending scrutiny. "Please return to the viewing area immediately. This is not a place to wander around," Benjamin calmly explained. "I just wanted to go to the restroom. I might have taken the wrong turn." "The signs are very clear, sir," a student next to Chad scoffed, whispering to his companion. "Looks like some people can't read, or simply don't care about the rules." His words elicited a few suppressed chuckles. A barely perceptible flicker of pain crossed Benjamin's face, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded, preparing to turn and leave. He was long accustomed to this feeling of being looked down upon, but it had never numbed him. Just then, Chad, seemingly wanting to further demonstrate his keen insight to his classmates, added, his voice not loud, but loud enough for several people around to hear. "Please understand, sir. There are important people present today, and we need to ensure security. Your, casual attire and behavior might cause unnecessary misunderstandings. Please cooperate and return to your seat. Like you." These words pierced Benjamin's heart like needles. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning slightly white, those rough, powerful hands that had once steadily handled equipment more precious than life itself. But in the end, he loosened his grip and silently, like a child who had done something wrong, walked back the way he came. He could feel the young, proud gazes behind him, like thorns in his back. He told himself, "For Matthew, endure. Today belongs to him." The graduation ceremony officially began. The military band played majestic music, and the generals and dignitaries entered. Leading the procession was the presiding officer for the day, Lieutenant General Thomas McCoy of the United States Army. He was a decorated veteran, his eyes sharp, his presence commanding even without anger. The lengthy ceremony proceeded one by one. Benjamin sat in the crowd, trying to put aside his earlier displeasure, intently searching for his son Matthew. When he saw Matthew's contingent marching past the reviewing stand in perfect unison, his eyes welled up with tears. Pride and excitement overwhelmed all his grievances. There was a short intermission in the middle of the ceremony. Lieutenant General McCoy needed to move to another platform. As he walked through part of the reviewing area, his gaze habitually swept across the crowd. Suddenly, he stopped abruptly, his eyes fixed on a solitary figure, an elderly man with gray hair, wearing an old jacket and standing ramrod straight. A flash of disbelief crossed the lieutenant general's face, quickly transforming into a profound understanding and immense respect. Without hesitation, he immediately changed direction, walking straight towards Benjamin Carter, amidst the astonished gazes of his adjutant and the surrounding crowd. Benjamin, head bowed over the program, reminiscing about his son's earlier display of prowess, suddenly felt a shadow fall over him, and the surroundings fell silent instantly. He looked up and saw Lieutenant General McCoy, with 3 stars on his shoulders, standing before him. Time seemed to freeze. Chad Miller and his companions also noticed this, their faces showing anticipation, assuming the general had come to deal with this unruly old man. However, what happened next was something they, and everyone around them, would never forget. Lieutenant General McCoy stared at Benjamin, his eyes filled with complex emotions: excitement, regret, and above all, utmost respect. Slowly, in a clear and powerful voice, even with a slight, almost imperceptible tremor, he asked, "The night watchman, Ben Carter? Is it really you?" The night watchman. This cry exploded like a thunderclap in the ears of those in the know. Benjamin's body trembled violently. This cry, almost buried deep in his memory, was suddenly polished like a dusty metal. He slowly stood up, looked at the general before him. His lips moved, but he only nodded slightly. "It's me, sir." "Long time no see." Lieutenant General McCoy took a deep breath, as if to calm the surging emotions within him. Ignoring the growing number of curious and shocked gazes around him, he spoke louder to Benjamin, and as if to everyone. "My God, I can't believe it. Night Watch Carter. 75th Ranger Regiment, Bravo Company, Mogadishu, 1993. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the young cadets and their families, his voice becoming even heavier and more powerful. "Children, parents, you may not know who stands before you. This man, Sergeant Major Benjamin Night Watch Carter, in those hellish days of Black Hawk Down, he and his young ... The team, without any air support, held out in an isolated 3-story building for over 12 hours. They used up almost all their ammunition." The lieutenant general's voice began to choke with emotion. "To protect wounded comrades and vital communications equipment, Sergeant Carter, he single-handedly held the only stairwell with his M60 machine gun, sustaining 3 bullet wounds, 2 of which were penetrating AK bullets, but he didn't retreat a single step, until rescue finally arrived. He guarded the place all night, like a tireless night watchman. For this, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross." A deathly silence fell over the room. Only the lieutenant general's impassioned voice echoed. The arrogance and contempt on Chad Miller and his comrades' faces had vanished without a trace, replaced by utter shock, shame, and utter humiliation. They had actually mocked a war hero who had received the Army's second highest honor. A warrior who had shed his blood for his country and his comrades. Lieutenant General McCoy's gaze, sharp as a dagger, pierced Chad Miller, whose face was deathly pale and body stiff. "Cadet, did you just say something disrespectful to this gentleman?" Chad Miller snapped out of his daze, standing bolt upright. His voice trembled with extreme shame and fear. Reporting, General. I apologize to him. Immediately. Right now." The general's order brooked no argument. Chad Miller turned to Benjamin Carter, the old man he had looked down upon just minutes before, who now seemed like an insurmountable mountain in his eyes. He bowed deeply, his voice trembling with tears. "Mr. Carter, I'm so sorry. I offer you my sincerest and deepest apologies for my ignorance, arrogance, and rudeness. Please forgive me." Benjamin looked at the young cadet, at the genuine remorse in his eyes, and his initial displeasure vanished. He seemed to see his younger self and his comrades in him. He slowly raised his hand and gently patted Chad's shoulder, his voice still calm, yet carrying a comforting strength. "It's all right, son. You were just doing your duty. Serve well, protect those around you." These forgiving words finally brought tears to Chad Miller's eyes. Lieutenant General McCoy looked at Benjamin, his eyes filled with complex emotions. "Then, after you retired, we looked for you, but you. Benjamin smiled faintly, his gaze sweeping across the crowd, searching for his son. "It's all in the past, sir. I just wanted to live quietly, to watch my son, today, become an officer." "That's enough." Just then, Matthew Carter broke through the crowd and ran over. He had clearly heard everything that had just happened. This young, handsome officer, newly commissioned as a second lieutenant, looked at his father with unprecedented shock, pride, and deep heartache. He had always known his father was a veteran with some difficulty walking, but he had never known that his father carried such a heavy burden of honor and pain. Matthew stood firm, chest out, and gave his father, Benjamin Carter, the most solemn and respectful salute of his life. "Dad!" 1,000 words choked in his throat. Benjamin looked at his son, at his crisp uniform and epaulets, and tears that had been welling up in his eyes finally streamed down his face. He raised his slightly trembling hand and returned the salute. In the sunlight, the salutes of 2 generations of soldiers silently spoke of inheritance, sacrifice, and indelible glory. Those silent medals finally shone with their deserved, brilliant light at this moment. A long and enthusiastic applause erupted around them. This applause was not only for the newly graduated officers, but also for the silent hero who had always worked tirelessly, yet had protected them with his life.